Hello guys, it's Vlad again from the No Quality Diorama, and today we'll be building a tank for our new diorama. For this video I used a model of the Soviet T-26 tank from the Unimodel set and the tank crew from the Ariane set. Unfortunately I didn't find a set from the early war period, therefore the diorama takes place in 1943. I thought the diorama will be more interesting when I use an autumn landscape. The colors of autumn always give diorama an interesting look, but let me briefly talk about the set. Don't worry, I know the model assembly can be boring for many people, so there will be only 3 minutes of video dedicated to the assembly. If you're not interested in assembly, you can skip directly to the painting part. The plastic is well done for this scale, also I would have preferred to the parts to have a softer plastic. During the assembly process I had some issues with the turret, but I hope it won't be too noticeable in the final diorama. Overall the tank details are quite decent, considering it's my first diorama of this site. And what did I know about 1/72 scale? Nothing. I started the assembly with the tank turret, and I can say that putting these parts together was very convenient. All the details fit nicely into place, except for the top of turret. Perhaps I accidentally bent the part, or it was like that from the beginning. But now there is a protruding part at the back of the turret, which spoils the tank appearance. When I began assembling the tank chassis, honestly I thought it would go crazy. All the parts didn't stick together well, and it was difficult to nearly cut out the photo-etched parts. I spent 2 days for assembling the chassis, and that's for a tank in 1/72 scale. Imagine how much effort I would put into if the tank were bigger. Oh my, I wouldn't even want to imagine this. And please don't take this as a complaint. Don't think that. In fact, I enjoy to build a model. And when something doesn't work out, I'm like Michael Jordan and take it personally, and pushing through until the end. So that's how the assembly turned out. I made some modification to the tank. I cut out the top hatch to place a tank crew member there. Now the tank looks more interesting. One of the guys didn't want to come out, so I had to assist with tweezers. The model looked dull without detail, and the tank lacks a unique feature. I decided to add branches at the back of the tank. I will seen several World War II photos. This tank adorned with piles of branches like that. It doesn't look bad, it adds some contrast and catches the viewer eyes. And at the back I added a tow cable. Also the camera didn't capture the result well, after all I am still an amateur in filming. It requires a certain skill. And with that we finish with the assembly and move on the painting model. Many might think that I'm just pouring paint on the model. That's not the case. The paint is too diluted. I have a Lucy airbrush. It's cheap and was originally designed for nail painting. But true modeler will always fund and use for such things. I dried the primer with my airbrush. I even tried to create rivets using glue, but it didn't turn out well. I will definitely improve on that in future models. And I primed the tank crew and left it to dry. Now the tank awaits paint with 3 shades of green. This will give the model an interesting look and show that this tank is not just some rural tractor, but a real combat vehicle with a special camouflage paint. Yeah, real battle machine with the frontal armor that was pierced by 22mm machine gun. I tried to apply a very thin layer of paint to not obscure the detail, otherwise the tank would lose its beauty. My poor airbrush wasn't prepared for such thin layer and constantly faced a problem. It splattered paint and sometimes refused to pass the paint, but I managed to make an agreement with it. And we continued our work. As you notice it, the tank starting to look pleasing with the second layer. I think I successfully closed the paint and the tank doesn't look new. It gives the impression that the paint has faded in the sun and lost its saturation. That's precisely the effect I was aiming for. And finally we move on to the third color. It adds lighter tones to our tank. I believe it turned out quite decent. Now it's time to add detail, scratches, oil streaks and rust. All of these elements that give the vehicle an old look. I started working on the detail with the wooden parts. I needed to make them contrasting, to add an interesting touch to the tank. They blended well with the autumn landscape, and of course, complemented the scene instead of spoiling it. I painted the logs on the tank superficially, leaving deep shadow. It added volume to them and preserved the effect of deep shadows. I also added light detail and weathering to the wooden parts. Now they look quite worthy. What do you think? Write your answer to the comment section under the video. I appreciate advice and critique. Now we come back to our tank and made the paint lighter. This will be our chipping effect. At first I wanted to bend the tank track protection, but I decided not to do it. Instead I added chipping effect. It worked well in highlighting the model edges and protruding parts. It turned out nicely. I thought of adding rust as well, but it seemed unnecessary, and I also didn't have the paint to create a beautiful rust effect. Overall, I am satisfied with the result. Of course, I could add more diverse effect to make the model look even more interesting, but I decided it's sufficient for now. Now it's time to move on to the decal and add to tank oil and dirt effect. It was my first time when I using decals, but it turned out well. I added a pair of stars on the both sides of tank turret and the number 19. It's not entirely history accurate, but it looks beautiful, so I am not worried. I thought of sharing how I paint the tank's hose pipe, but it turned out so terrible that I ended up completely repainted. It's better this way than having the horror I experienced during paint. The final step in working on our tank, it was adding oil stains and shading using oil paint. I had black paint and Van Dyke brown. Van Dyke would look more interesting in the autumn landscape, so I chose it. After that I went over the entire model, emphasizing recesses, coloring and highlighting protruding parts. It turned out quite decent. I am satisfied the work well done. But now we need to spend a few minutes on the tank crew. The models are very small, and when I say very, I mean incredibly small. It's inconvenient to work with them, and I didn't use any advanced technique. I simply highlighted the eyes and nose of the figure, then I painted their clothes in the desired color and made some minor adjustment to the detail. And now it's time to put everything together and see the result of my work. I think it turned out well. This concludes of the video. Thank you for watching, and a special thanks to those who support my effort in learning English and working with model. I wish you a pleasant day and success in your work. Goodbye everyone.